Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be at the conference that I wanted to be when I moved to Spain 2 years ago. Finally, so let's get the best out of it. This was a 2-hour-long training session that I tried my best to compress in 30 minutes. So let's see what I could do. This is a story. You start a new job, look at that, super happy, great team, nice culture, you get a stand-up desk, everything is perfect until your boss shows you the system you will be working on. And it's a mess. It's been in development for 10 or more years. And of course, everybody who knows what's going on there is no longer with the company. That's why they are hiring you. It's maintained, never said properly, never said good. It's maintained somehow. It works. Because it's Erlang, it's working, and nobody knows why, but it's working. But so, whenever there is a new feature, whenever there is a bug that has to be fixed, there is always a problem there because nobody knows exactly what to touch, and nobody knows even if what they are changing doesn't affect other things in the system. That's a very familiar story, and it's not only for Erlang. Michael Feathers already wrote a book and got millions of dollars out of it, explaining how to deal with this exact situation. The goal of this talk and the goal of the book there was to increase the confidence when applying new changes to a code that it's kind of new to you because it has many years in the past. My personal goal on top of it is to decrease the level of complexity in the code incrementally. So for new stuff, you make it with confidence, and for old stuff, you periodically increase the level of confidence for everybody to work on that piece. Are we on the same page? Cool. This is what I will try to show you. Multiple tools that you have already available in the Erlang ecosystem to improve the quality of your code and the maintainability of it incrementally, and also for everything new that you add. I will go one by one. And by the time I run out of time, we will see how many we can get. The rest of them, you can talk to me on the conference. So first things off, no Erlang MK here. I've been working with River 3 for ages now. All these tools can be used outside of River 3, but I won't show you how. Just Google it or talk to Luik or whoever. So Michael Feathers, legacy code is code that is not tested. I agree. So the first thing is to make sure to add tests to your code. There might be some tests already in the code, and some others, it will fall on you to include them. But the first question is, what testing tools do you have available? In Erlang, there are two, and I will go super fast over them because everybody must know them already. One is Eunit for unit tests. The one particularity is that it has camel case macros that I hate, but it does work. And it gets you access in general to non-exported functions, so you can test the internals of your modules. And there is also common test, which is my favorite. It's based on regular assertions equal the matching operator. And the tests are generally black box tests. So you test functionality, not particular modules. And you can use it for test-driven development much, much better than Eunit. If you don't know them, check them out. But this is the most important part that many people forget. There is also a tool called Cover. It provides code coverage. If you run this after your tests, you will see what parts of your code are covered by tests and which ones are not. So how do you do that? Well, in River 3, you can just run the commands like unit, ct, and cover. But 3 commands, it's already a lot. It's already a lot. So what you can do is you can create an alias. I am very happy that nobody had added a command called test to rebar3 yet. So I always add that alias, and you will see how that alias will grow over time in this presentation. Initially, it just runs the test and presents the coverage report. To present the coverage report, cover must be enabled, which is the option below. And I like the verbose options because that will print out a nice summary with the coverage percentage for each module. It looks like this. Usually, in large systems, you will find something like that. Some modules are correctly covered, some others are more or less, some others are completely uncovered by tests. If you are going to work in one that is properly covered, lucky you. You can work with confidence because you think you can assume that it's well tested. If not, it's up to you to add new tests and increase that level of coverage. To increase that level of coverage and to be sure that it's always increasing, what you can do is add something to your CI pipelines that you must have. If not, that's an assumption here, you have CI pipelines, and the code reviews that will allow you to make sure that these numbers doesn't go down. Having this at 100% for each module is amazing, great, and it's a great goal. Not the final goal, but a good one. But as long as it doesn't reduce, your pull request will be improving the system. How do you check that you are, in fact, increasing coverage on every pull request? Well, there must be 10x engineer alternatives, like the top tier guys, who can go there and add coveralls or other tools for GitHub or whatever to check. But if you are like me, 1x engineer, just the basic one, what I do, I include in my repository, I push to GitHub or whatever, the index HTML file for the coverage report, which has those percentages that you saw before. That way, if a code reviewer goes there and checks the file, if it sees that we are decreasing coverage in one module or in general, it can reject the pull request. It requires human interaction, of course, but it's free. What else can we ask? Overall, the rest of the slides, I will keep doing the same. I will tell you the right thing to do is that thing, but if you are like, just now, I want something for now, I will give you that solution. So with this one, you check that at least the new stuff is tested, and the old stuff, hopefully, will be more tested over time. Then the formatter. There are many formatters for Erlang. I happen to have developed and maintained one of them, which is this one, is the one that I will show you. Don't use this one, use a formatter. Why? Because most of the times, the problems with old code are also related to the fact that it's hard to read it for you or for other colleagues. So if they all come up with a formatter, you remove that discussion. Rebar3 formatter is a project plugin for Rebar3, as the name implies, and it basically provides a default formatting for all code, but it lets you configure a lot of properties, and you can create your own formatter, etc. Just come up with a style that adjusts to your team, and run the formatter on the whole code base, like this. Or before, in the test, what you can do is verify that it is formatted, but then you run the format. But of course, if you run the formatter for all your code, every single file will be unformatted. And if you create a pull request formatting all of them, nobody will like to review it. You will block development for everybody because everything will be conflict all over the place. So that's not the way to go. The proper way to go is to format the code incrementally. You add the formatter to the configuration. Where is this screen? Here. There. You add the formatter to the configuration, but then you only format new modules, the modules that you are introducing. The old modules, you keep them unformatted. How do you do that? by using format ignore. If you put that tag in every module, running the formatter is pretty much doing nothing. And then, for new modules, you format them with the proper formatter that you choose with all your options. And even more, if you use Jira, Trello, or whatever other tool, you can add a periodic task to format 10 old modules at a time. We did that in NextRoll, and over the course of a couple of months, 2-3 months, we were improving and reformatting all the code that we had until the point we don't need this format ignore anymore, and every single file is formatted with a formatter. Nobody ever complains about comma first lists anymore, or my style, or where do you put the parentheses. Those discussions were all over. So this seems trivial, but it's a very important tool to speed up process, and also it removes the complexity of thinking how to format the code. You write it wherever you want, in whatever way you want, just format it before pushing, and that's it. Then, one step ahead of it, linter. Elvis is a tool to check your code and give you hints about good practices. It's based on a list of guidelines that has about 80 rules, I think. All of them configurable, all of them supported by default, but you can also add yours. It's a very wide, a very open project. It's maintained by myself and Paulo Ferraz Oliveira. And to use in Rivar 3 projects, you add it as a project plugin, exactly like Rivar 3 format. Then you can add the linting to the test alias, so that every time you run the test, it verifies the formatting, it lints the code, runs the test, etc., etc. Again, if you just run like this with the default options, it will generate lots of warnings. The first thing you need to do is to tell the linter what rules you actually want to check in what pieces of your code. To do that, you add elvis config. Elvis config is a config file, complex format, doesn't matter, copy and paste from somewhere else. The important part is that there is a list of maps there. Each one defines where to find the files and how to check them. With Erl files, with Rivar config, with the Erl files rule set, with the Rivar config rule set, etc. And you can also specify individual rules if you want, disable them, etc., etc. But then again, if you apply even in that way the linter to an old code base, usually you will get lots of warnings, like lots. And you can try and go and check and verify each one of them, try to replace the improper parts with nice ones, etc. But that will also be a huge pull request that nobody wants to review, etc. Same thing as before. So again, the solution for a 1X engineer, you have two, actually. You can first start by disabling all the rules. Every rule that provides a warning, you disable it, like you see there with the atom disable. And you put a periodic task to re-enable one rule at a time. So then, a week later or two, you will have a pull request where you remove all the super nested structures from everywhere in your system. The next week, you will put all the spaces around the operators, so on, until all the rules are respected. That's one way of doing it. But there is the other way, just like before. You can ignore every module with elvis ignore. So new modules respect all the rules. All modules are not checked. And periodically, you remove the elvis ignore attribute from every module. Caveat, only works for modules. If you're checking HRL files or config files, sorry, you will have to make them good before submitting the pull request, because there is no way to ignore them like that. But those are the less, right? You have much more modules than config files. So with this, again, all code periodically gets linted. New code is automatically linted and formatted, which is good. And then we start checking the bad pieces. So with xref is again a tool that comes with OTP, and it does many things. It keeps references from function calls to function definitions from all over your code and the dependencies, but it allows you to traverse them and analyze them and whatnot. But the thing that we generally use the most is something like this. We add the xref command to our test alias, and we run it, and it checks unused exports, undefined function calls, and deprecated function calls. So again, if you run it on a large code base, probably you get a lot of warnings. Even more, if you run it on a library, as it is, it will warn you about every single API function that you have, because you are exporting them to be used by other people, and so they are not used in your project. To avoid that, you just don't check for unused exports by checking for everything that it's not unused exports, like this, undefined function calls, local unused, etc., etc. That's the configuration, basically the default configuration for libraries. Again, how do you incrementally apply this to the old part of the system while applying it consistently to every single new module? Well, xref ignores, same thing. You start by ignoring all your modules, and then periodically remove 1, 2, 3, how many you want from them. You don't actually need to start ignoring all your modules, only the ones that have xref problems, which are generally a very small number. And then the most powerful tool of all, dialyzer. I won't explain dialyzer. Since Stavros is laughing, I guess he will explain dialyzer later. Dialyzer basically finds issues in your code, which are possibly bugs. Dialyzer reports those bugs, and it's up to you to understand what's going on. But jokes aside, it's the most powerful tool we have here to detect very strange bugs that otherwise will go undetected. But again, if you just add dialyzer to the test alias and you run it, not only it will take a long time to compute the PLT, which is the cache for dialyzer, but it will also report a lot of text that's daunting and confusing and not generally easy to deal with. So you will think that, first, let's avoid that PLT thing for a moment. So if you have a CI pipeline where you can contact S3, you have a bucket in S3 or other place, or you can put it on GitHub, just cache your PLTs, because otherwise running CI will increase 5 minutes for each CI, not good. So this is what we do at NextRoll, but that's because we have lots of S3 access. If you don't, just, I don't know, push it to GitHub or something. But this is the thing. The solution will be to ignore dialyzer, the same as before. Ignore dialyzer in every module and periodically remove that ignore, etc., etc. That doesn't work with dialyzer for multiple reasons. The first one is that ignoring dialyzer on a single module is not easy. You have to ignore the specific warnings in each module, which takes a lot of time. And also, if you stop ignoring one module, you can get warnings for 10 other modules. Generally, dialyzer warnings are not module bound. They are system bound. So you get an error here, but the actual solution is 10 modules and 2 applications away from it. So the idea, the plan that we came up with, and it worked for us, there is a blog post telling this whole story, was to collect the dialyzer warnings instead of failing. If there are one, we just collect them, and we check that there are not new ones when we do a pull request. If the developer introduced a new warning, that's bad. The pull request is rejected. If the developer removed all ones, we celebrate, and periodically we have a task to remove some of those warnings until the file with the dialyzer warnings is completely empty. At that point, dialyzer just runs, and if it detects something, there is a bug, you have to fix it, that's it. Finally, the new kid on the block, the latest addition to this list of tools. It's called Hank, because of this guy, Hank Scorpio. And it's a tool to kill Oxbow code with fire. Oxbow code is code that's left behind when you remove a feature and you forget to remove, say, a macro that you created for the feature or a config parameter that you created specifically for that feature, etc. There is, I gave already 2 talks and wrote 1 paper, so if you want more information on it, just check it out, ask me or Google it. But the idea here is that it will tell you when you have unnecessary code that doesn't even get to production. It's just written there doing nothing. And to add Hank, again, it's a River 3 plugin. You add it to the test alias, and when you run it, it will tell you stuff like that. This macro is not used, this other macro not used, this function thingy doesn't need the argument, it's always ignored, so why do you have it? This record doesn't use, it's only used somewhere, so just move it to that file, and so on so far. Again, usually, in large code bases, you don't expect to have that many of these. So maybe the initial task could be to just remove them. The level of confidence with Hank aims to be as high as with dialyzer. So if Hank tells you that this macro is not used, this macro is not used. There might be macros that are not used and not detected by Hank, okay, but if Hank detects one, you can remove it. But if you don't trust it so much to do that, you can also incrementally Hank your code. You Hank ignore every module, don't ignore the new ones, and periodically remove the ignore from a group of 10 modules or whatever number modules you want. Eventually, you will be able to remove all these ignores, the xref ignores, format ignore, elvis ignore, etc. Right? Eventually, your whole code will be checked as if it will be checked just like it should have been checked from day one, with all the tools that are available to verify and give you confidence when working with it. So this is what we did. Remember, this was our goal, to increase confidence when applying changes to the system in a way that improves the system incrementally. By adding the tools that provide confidence and using them for all new pieces of code, all of them are created with confidence. But you also want confidence on the old ones. And that's achieved by incrementally spending time in applying these tools, not all at once, but periodically, right? In small chunks. So you can review it, so you can spread knowledge. So one developer applies the formatter 1 week, another developer applies the formatter another week. Eventually, everybody knows how to apply the formatter. Eventually, everybody knows what those 10 modules that they have to apply the formatter to do or are aimed to do. It's also a way to know more about the code you're managing. It worked. One thing I want to say is that this approach worked for us. It's NextRoll has code written from, I think, the early 2000s until now by, I would guess, more than 30 developers. Currently, we are 12, and none of us was there at the beginning. The one that has been there for the most time, it's been there only for 6 years, I think. And the next one is me, so we are just like that. But we have a lot of new people coming in from last year. And it's a rewarding experience to see how fast they can interact with the code now compared to the time when I joined the company a couple of years ago, and the onboarding took me like a month or two. Now it's a week or maybe 2, and that's it. It's super, super rewarding, and it works very well. So you can keep on. You can still add more things. You can detect security issues with PEST. You can tell everybody about the Erlang language server, and so they can use them in their editors, and that will help them with everything because it includes the linter, the formatter, hang, etc. Refactor Erlang is one thing that I would love to try, but to this day I wasn't able, so eventually. And then there are tools for more things, for when the systems are in production, like telemetry to monitor them if they are not monitored yet, or if they are monitored by strange things that nobody knows how to work. And if the Ukrainian war finally finishes and Vlad can go back to work on Sheldon, eventually you will have a tool to spell check your strings, binaries, atoms, function names, whatever. Currently it exists, but it's still in the very early ages, so I don't recommend actively to put it on your systems. But take a look, watch his talk, you will see maybe you are inspired and you wanna contribute. It will be a very nice addition to the toolchain. And that's it from me. Thank you very much. You can find me around, and I am El Brujo Halcón everywhere.
Hi, we have a question.
Go ahead.
And the question is by Piotr. It's hard to pronounce. Are you in the audience? Are you digital? Can I see? I don't have the Zoom chat open. Can we see if he's in?
Over here, probably.
Here? Are you here?
There is no chat.
There is no chat. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're, can they unmute, right? Do we have? Yes. Okay. If you could unmute and ask your question, that would be great, so that everyone here at on the site also can hear it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Simple question. Why is the name Elvis?
What? So again, the question, please.
Why is the name
Why
Elvis?
is the name Elvis? Long time ago, there was a tool to check, I believe it was Ruby code, called Hound. And when I was the CTO at Inaka, and I told one of my Erlang developers, I want to build a similar tool, but for Elvis. And we were terrible at naming. And since we thought you are nothing but a hound dog, we said, hey, why don't you call it Elvis? And that's it.
Yes. I've used Hound, actually, on a Ruby project. It gives you inline comments for each and everything that you do wrong. Turns out that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, Elvis originally did that, but eventually the server that hosted that version of Elvis was turned off, and also Elvis was turned into a River 3 plugin, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Do you have any more questions? Please type them either in the Wuha app or raise a hand. Yes. Could you please come forward and speak in the mic so that everybody can hear? And eat it like an ice cream, like this.
Okay. I've seen on your list refactor error.
I don't understand, sorry.
I've seen on your list refactor error.
Refactor error, yeah.
Do you use it?
I don't now because that's requires a JOS server and some extra tools on the computer. It cannot be set up, or it's not. I couldn't set it up for CI projects with River 3 fast enough to convince my coworkers to try it, but eventually, hopefully, we will see.
Okay. I'm asking because I have a lot of problems with setting up it.
Yeah, I had a lot of problems setting it up. That's my answer too.
Thank you. Any more questions? All questions are good, as you remember from the beginning, opening keynotes. Yes, please come forward and eat the mic as an ice cream or a lollipop or something. Yes. Yeah, you can just pull it up.
Yeah, so I posted on Who as well. So imagine I have a project that is using old makefiles.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, okay. So there is no plugin for anything, but would you have any suggestions how to call these tools separately?
There are suggestions for each individual tool, I would say. Elvis, you can run with a project called Elvis Shell. You can run it as a script. What's the other? Dialyzer you can run it as a script. The results of Dialyzer running as a script are very different from the ones running in River 3. So probably you cannot do that warning things. You have to do it manually somehow.
So, no worries. Next.
Yeah.
Next tool.
xref, you can run it manually. The formatter, not River 3 format, but FMT, you can run as a standalone script. And if you want Hank to run as a script, we accept contributions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We have some more questions in Wuha. I assume that you are digital. So let's see, the question from Ali, are you here? Or are you in the audience? Okay, no? Okay, I will read the question then. Thanks a lot. Do you know if there are any tools that check the project directory structure as well? Or also?
Oh, no. No, and that's a great project. Like, that could be a Spawnfest winner in the next edition. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, and then we have one from Adolfo.
Adolfo, yeah.
Adolfo, oh, the names are real. Are you... He cannot unmute, okay. Do any of the tools need some help from new Erlang developers?
Do any of the tools need help? All of the tools. All of the tools need help from Erlang developers. Very much. We have, say, in Elvis, we have around 35 or 40 open issues. Some of them are very easy to tackle. They are marked with, what's the name of this thing in October? Hacktoberfest. So if you pick one of them, it will be not hard. Then Hank has open issues. There are people interested in writing a Hank-like tool for Elixir. So if you think Hank is useful, you can talk to, say, Laura Castro, who will be super interested in having you work with her on porting that to Elixir. I don't know. Yeah, every tool needs help. Yeah, definitely.
Which tool do you recommend I start with? I'm currently trying to understand a code base not using any of the tools from Ayiko.
Which one to start? Yeah, that's an amazing question. Personally, I will start with the formatter first, but only because I'm kind of a maniac, and if I get code that I don't understand how it's formatted, I tend to format it myself, and I spend a lot of time there, which is unnecessary if you have a formatter. So that will be my first thing. Probably the next one will be xref, because the warnings that xref produce are very simple to tackle. It's not like dialyzer. It's super, super simple. And from then on, whatever. Yeah, one at a time. That's the only thing. Don't apply them all at once, because you defeat the purpose again.
And Kjell Winblad, are you in the audience or are you online? If you are, please unmute. Yes, could you please come forward? More ice cream.
Yeah, my question is about Hank. So it tests things like unused variables, which is also tested by like the compiler, for example.
No,
Okay.
the test that the compiler, Hank assumes that you enabled all the possible warnings in the compiler, so it doesn't test again. So it only tests, for instance, unused, say, record fields. If you have a record with 10 fields, but you only use 9 of them, it will tell you about the 10th one. But if you declare a variable and then you don't use it, that's a problem with the compiler, not with Hank.
I see. So it checks things that are not checked by other tools.
Exactly. So
Thank you.
it has a little bit of overlap with Elvis, but very, very small. Very small.
Yes. Jonathan Gustafsson. Are you online?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can speak a bit louder.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned that all of these tools have helped you like shorten the onboarding time for your team. I was wondering, is this just due because the code is now easier to understand when you have implemented all of these helpers? Or is it because some tool helps with actual onboarding itself?
I don't understand, sorry.
Uh,
Okay, let me get, I can read it. Good question. The onboarding process was also improved, of course, through the years. Yeah, we now have stuff like onboarding buddies. We don't expect newcomers to be immediately productive. So yeah, there were external improvements around this, of course. But the fact that the code is now uniform, well-tested, and that everybody codes with confidence gave us a huge step forward. Something like, you are new here, you have to make this change. I don't know if I will break something. Don't worry, just make the change, and the pull request and continuous integration will tell you if you break something. So, yeah.
Timofey? Do you have to go up to the ice cream? No,
You
up
have
to the ice cream, because otherwise the ones online don't. Okay, sorry. He's a colleague of mine, by the way, which is, if you're wondering, okay. Is there a comma-first formatter?
What?
Is there a comma-first formatter?
Not yet. We are waiting on Roberto. Roberto will turn himself into a comma first. He will digitalize his mind and comma first everything. Yeah.
Very good. I think these are all the questions. And we even have time left. That's amazing. Give it up.
Thank you very much.